You can't slide into Jenna's DM.
Oh, okay.
Guys, can we just
I'm
move
sorry.
on?
I got to take another class.
Okay.
KD, help me.
Katie's the last person to help you.
Oh, okay. Whoever's handling this stuff.
Is fake people. Sticking with Westbrook's Thunder, basically sticking with anything other than sliding. Thunder lost their third straight playoff game against the Jazz last night. Many questions swelling about the future of this Thunder team. Will Russ be unhappy next season? That wouldn't be good. Will Paul George leave in free agency? Even worse. Will Melo stay? Talk about a disaster. Nick.
Yeah.
What does the Game 4 loss mean for the future of the Thunder?
It's disastrous. I mean, I'm not trying to be Chicken Little here, but, I mean, it's not an extreme to say the sky's falling when the sky's actually falling. And this is now what the future looks like for OKC in the short term. Paul George is leaving. You joked about it, but it's accurate. Carmelo's going to opt in to $28 million next year.
Which could almost be worse than Paul George leaving.
So you're not, it ain't great.
Big bad.
Big bad. So you are not going to be able to drastically improve your team this offseason because of the cap space situation. And you're losing your second best player, who in these playoffs has been your best player. That then takes you to the season after this, or the season after next, pardon me, when Carmelo will be off your books 2 years from now. Well, then all of a sudden your best player is a 31-year-old point guard who has made his entire career based on his athleticism. And the history of those guys past the age of 30, 31 ain't great. And so the reason we talked about the Thunder, if we ranked the teams we talked about this year, it'd be Cavs 1, Golden State 2, Thunder 3. It was because they have compelling personalities and because we knew how important this year was for the future of Russ's ability to compete for championships. I think they've squandered it with how they've played in this series and how they played this year, which makes how they played in this series not surprising. Paul George is leaving, Carmelo is staying, and Russ is not getting a disaster for them.
Let's look at the result. Team that scored 50 points. He used to be on OKC. Kevin Durant was the MVP of last year's final. He used to be on OKC. So he just talked about their current situation. What they've been through in the last 6, 7 years as a franchise don't recover from that. After going to the finals with these three players, you would think going into the future, man, their future was bright. Playing against LeBron James, losing to LeBron, like, oh, man, their future's very bright. Harden left. KD left. Now they're stuck with Melo another year, and because of Russ last year, they're basically stuck with Russ too because he opted in
and signed a major contract.
Yeah, so they're stuck, and unfortunately, that their general manager, I believe, is one of the best in the league, and they do a great job of selecting players. You don't select 3 Hall of Famers in that short a window unless you're doing things the right way. So he's not going to get a chance to try to make that roster better, and it's unfortunate to him. And I believe that the coach, you should look at the coach, Billy Donovan. Like, is he an NBA coach? Does he develop players? He's had some good players, but what has he won? Billy Donovan, to me, is part of the problem. Russ's temperament is part of the problem. That deal that Melo has, Hoodie Melo, that's the last time we've seen him. This summer, when he was playing in 24-hour fitness, that was the last good Melo that we saw. That's a problem.
And in 2019, so again, we're assuming Paul George is gone because Paul George is gone. And in 2019, when Melo is finally off your books, you're still paying $64 million to a 31-year-old Russell Westbrook and to Steven Adams. And while Steven Adams is a good player, he's not a $26 million a year player, which is what they will be staring at, or $28 million paying him then. Like you mentioned the general manager. They, in 3 years, without ever once winning the lottery, without ever once having the #1 pick of a draft, in 3 years, they drafted Durant, Russ, Serge Ibaka, and James Harden. To do that, and to forget winning a championship, forget going to multiple finals, to do that and to win 1 finals game, and for that to be the pinnacle of it all, is disastrous for any franchise, much less one of the smallest markets in the NBA.
CZ brought up 2 reasons why. Maybe it's the head coach, Billy Donovan. Maybe it's Russell Westbrook, the way he plays, the style he plays. We thought Russell Westbrook and James Harden were going to have equal responsibilities. Get used to bringing in another superstar and see how you can play with them. Well, Harden's been able to do it seamlessly. Russ hasn't. Would you put more blame on Billy Donovan or more blame on Russell Westbrook?
No, both of them to blame. Russ had that style before Billy got there. But as a coach, you have to develop a style and continue to develop great players. You have to add other things to their game. One thing LeBron did with Spoelstra. LeBron stopped playing on the perimeter. He started playing in the low post when he went to Miami. Now that we've seen him come back to Cleveland, he's playing the point guard. His game has evolved. Now, he hadn't had the best coaching in the world, but they have pushed him to being a better player. Russ is not a better player. His shot selection is not better. His inability as a point guard to make other players on the team better. So that's a responsibility of the organization and of the head coach.
Well, and this hurts my heart to do, but I got to be honest. Like, we're on here every day. I got to react to what I saw. When we're talking about Russ, forget the fact that he's going to turn 30 next season. Forget the giant contract. We're just talking about Russ, the defending league MVP, who just averaged another triple-double. One of the things I like to do when people talk about, is LeBron the best player in the league, is say, okay, do this thought exercise with me. Take the player you think is the best player, flip he and LeBron's teams, and tell me which team got worse, got better. Well, let's do that with Russ for a second. Which great player do you flip Russ and them one for one, and the Thunder get worse and that team gets better? If you flip KD and Russ, does Golden State get better? Of course not. Does OKC get better? Yes. If you flip Harden and Russ, does Houston get better? No bleeping way. Does OKC get better? Yeah, absolutely. Giannis. How about Ben Simmons right now? What about in this series, Donovan Mitchell? Like, if you think about the teams that are good in the playoffs right now, if you took their best player and traded him one for Russ, which of those teams are better? Miami? Sure, because Miami doesn't have a best player.
Right.
Like, Indiana? Maybe. Like, if Russ is on that tier, like, we have
Oladipo got a lot better when he left Russ. He went from being a player to being a superstar.
And so it's hard to defend what Russ has done in this series. It's hard to defend his inability to evolve throughout the year or in this series. And because of that, sometimes life ain't fair. Paul George is going to leave. And the next time OKC signs a major free agent will be the first time since that team went to Oklahoma that they had a major free agent. Like, it's bleak there.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, another team says no thanks to Des Bryant. Next time, First Things First.
We got a report.